Hi everybody, Melissa Sorrentino here. I want to actually check in today in regards to making Provgress, which is really just me kind of talking about primarily initially I intended for that category to be just sort of tracking my progress in making the vlog, talking maybe more nuts and bolts about like lighting and sound or YouTube or different other social media conduits, and just kind of getting into sort of like the I guess you call it the behind the scenes, but also my personal journey about like how it's affecting me, if I feel like this is something that's a good thing to do or not, or what's the progress of like a human being going through this journey. Because I know a lot of people might be like me and they've watched YouTube videos and they're like, interested and fascinated, like, why would I do that or whatever, but they feel sort of compelled to do it. And since I'm doing it, I want to share that journey with you guys. But it's also kind of starting to morph into me talking about like just life itself and like making progress through the improvisational, experience of living life. Basically, we are plotting out a path of a journey of a storyline as we live every day, not just day, but moment and nano moment to nano moment. This is the way life is. So just kind of want to check in. I am experiencing right now a little bit of it's sort of bittersweet, but I just do not feel compelled to do improv. I don't feel compelled to perform it, and I don't feel compelled to teach it. I don't really feel very compelled even to watch it. And it's like, I sort of feel like it's kind of starting to fall into that category, at least for right now, of something I feel like I should do. And I really kind of made a promise to myself fairly recently over the last couple years that I'm going to start steering my life away from things just if the only real reason for me to do it is because I feel like I should do it. And then it's like, well, why should you do it? And I just end up with like an ellipses and like a blank line. I cannot fill that in. I'm going to continue to take the limited time, energy, resources of life and actually start channeling that into things I do genuinely feel compelled to do, rather than things I feel like I'm, shoving myself to do because of some sort of like should. And the interesting thing about this is sort of ironic but fascinating to me, is that's a lesson in improv too. I don't think you're going to have very successful scene work if you don't follow the interest level of yourself. Clearly the audience is a bunch of human beings too. And if we're a little bit more drawn towards something that we think is fascinating or fun or interesting or juicy, maneuver your improv towards that. Don't maneuver your improv into like what you think you should be doing your improv about, or how you should do improv, or how your teacher says you should do X, Y, or Z. Of course, if you're working on like a skill set and you want to like sharpen your tools and you want to like get your reps in and like build your muscles for the things that you want to be able to do as a performer, of course. But that's called rehearsal. I'm talking about the actual art form. I like to paint. There are times when I'm just testing the colors. I'm trying to find the perfect color, and I'll take like the little, scrap paper that I have, and I'll just make like little lines of different colors, try a little dab of red, a little orange, just keep on making it. And then I'm like, oh, eureka, I found it. This is the color. And then that's the one that I'll use for the actual canvas that I have over here. Well, that's a similar experience with rehearsing and then putting it on actual stage and actually performing it. So, but if you're not looking for a product at the end where you're looking to like sell tickets and become a professional performer, then it's kind of all fun and art and just doing it. So, of course, the more you want to get out of your art of performing and practicing, the more you're going to start to hone that, and you want to still raise the quality of what you're doing, even if it's just for your own, shits and giggles. So for me, I am recognizing that just not being compelled towards performing and not being compelled at the moment for teaching. I was actually requested to teach something this month, and I turned it down because I have something else going on that's a little more compelling to me. It's also more necessary. But even if it wasn't, I wasn't sad. I actually felt sort of relieved to be like, no, I don't think I'm going to do that. But then immediately it's like a pang of guilt. I was like, oh God, what if I, don't do any improv? What if the last show I did is the last show I ever do? I don't know. But I'm not going to worry about that. That's crazy. But I do believe that I will be sort of like my path and journey will probably find its way back around to improv like it always does, like it always has. But if it doesn't, it's moving forward towards something else. I'm not doing it just to not do it, but it's growing. And this channel is something I don't want to stop doing, even if I'm not, improv centric with my actual lifestyle. I haven't done a show in, it's been probably quite a few months now. I haven't taught a class in about a month. I think it's only been about 4 weeks since I taught the last class I taught. I don't know how long it'll be before I do either of those again. But I do think that my life journey has brought me to looking at improv truly as an art form. And I mean like a fine art form. And art is so vital to humanity. It really is part of something that we do. People, cave paintings back in the day, like early evolved Homo sapiens created art for various purposes. And me finding improv has made such an enormous impact on my life. It has become for me a gateway to the concept of mindfulness. Now, I imagine people sort of find mindfulness through different conduits, maybe yoga, maybe religion, maybe a different art form, maybe, whatever, I don't know, maybe through drag racing, whatever it is that's your thing, but for me, improv itself so directly leads to the concepts of living in that moment and truly being present in that moment, letting go of what lies behind, moving on to what lies ahead, which is actually a scriptural line, from like the King James Bible. But it's just that we find truth with a capital T. That's something I started saying when I was maybe about 12. I had just reached this concept where I was like, there's something called truth with a capital T. That's like, it's not your truth, it's not my truth. There's a universality that we all, from all across the land, we find these like pinnacles of like, that is a truth that seems to be universal across races, across eras, across sexes, across languages and experience levels. But there are some things that many of us sort of seekers is seeking, the face of God. We kind of come to these commonalities, and mindfulness for me is one. The concept of being with a capital B, like being. That is something that improv has brought me to. And I personally, and I'm not suggesting you do it, but I personally am fascinated with exploring that sort of like secret door and looking and saying, what's behind here? That is something I am compelled to do. So that's kind of what, I don't know if this channel will morph completely into that or not, but that's kind of what I'm looking to do. And unfortunately, I didn't stumble upon, my YouTube life thing that I want to do now. Until I was kind of already at this point in my path. So as far as like, educating people about the yes and concept and the very, very basic concepts of improv, I guess I'm just going to leave that to people who are more compelled to do that. And if your goal is that you want to be a performer professionally, or you want to be funnier, or you want to, be a great writer or whatever, I do think that this channel is going to speak to you, and it's definitely going to season and flavor what you're doing by sort of pushing that envelope and thinking in larger concepts. But if you're like, oh, okay, this lady's not even like famous on a stage, or I've never seen her perform and she's not hilarious, or whatever it is, that's okay, because there's plenty of people out there that's what they're doing. But this is what I'm doing. And I even this morning thought of something for my next video that I think is fascinating. So I'm going to go ahead and record that as well. All right, that's all I have for my check-in for my Making Provgress. I hope that you guys are coming along in sort of finding, sort of like higher thinking concepts, more complex, more, spiritual concepts that may or may not relate to something that you're doing in your life, whether you're, landscaping your yard, or going through a relationship transition, or whatever your hobby is, whatever it is. There's a facet of art and arts and crafts and that leads to this deeper value. And that's what I want to bring. Okay, that's all I have, you guys. I'll talk to you later. Bye.